Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new, my name is Jessi Gish. I own a salon and hair extension company based in Utah. I am a color and extension specialist, and my videos usually rotate around those two subjects. So for today's video, I am going to be touching on a subject that I have been asked so much about, and it is Redken Shades EQ. If you go back to one of my very first videos, I was using Redken shades from the very beginning. I didn't ever really use it in school because toning wasn't as much of a thing in school, but I did dive into it as I was in the salon life and learning things, and I immediately fell in love with it, and it has become one of my go-to brands for toning. That and Goldwell is pretty much all I use for toning, and for good reason, because Redken Shades is amazing. So I just want to start this video off by saying I am not associated with Redken in any way. They've sent me a few things. I buy their product all the time, but other than that, they are not sponsoring this video. I am not an educator for them. Some of these things I may say may not be 100% true. It's just my learning experience. So I'm telling you guys things that I've learned over the years using Redken, and then also some things that I have learned from other Redken educators. So to get going with this video, I just wanted to say thank you to all that recommended that I do this, because I think it's such a good idea. So I have this little piece of paper right here. I have front and back written down everything that I've learned about shades, things that I have just picked up on. So I'm just going to read each subject and then dive deeper into it as I'm going. Okay, so number one is Redken Shades EQ is an ammonia-free, no-lift, demi-permanent color. So for those of you that have used Redken, you know that it is not permanent. It is not something that's going to deposit or lift. It is basically just a gloss, and that's how it's marketed. It's supposed to tone, gloss, refresh your color, and I think it's important for people who have never used Redken shades to understand that going into it. For example, my assistant came from an Aveda school, and Aveda does color very differently. So when she got to the salon and she was using Redken shades with me, she was like, what is this? Like, how do I do it? And it's funny because for me, I've used it for so many years, so many stylists use it and love it. And so I just kind of assumed everyone knew what it was. But for someone who was trained a different way, it is a little bit different. So for those newbies out there or students that have come from an Aveda school where it's a little bit different, just know that it is an ammonia-free, no-lift, demi-permanent color, mainly meant for toning. So the cool thing about Redken shades is there's two different forms of it. They have a gloss and a cream. I would say the gloss is the most universal. It's what most everyone uses. The gloss is a mix of directive and oxidative dyes, and it's more translucent. So that's why it's called a gloss. It's going to give you that like shiny, glossy look. And then the cream is 100% oxidative dyes, denser and deeper. So this one's actually a cream color, but it is still a demi, no ammonia, no lift color, but it has a little more density because it is cream instead of a liquid. And when I use cream, I mainly use it for low lights. Sometimes I'll use it for a root color at the chair. For things that I need to oxidize a little bit more and I need like a little more pigment in it, that's when I would use the cream. And then I use the gloss for at the bowl work. The gloss you mix with a processing solution. If you guys have ever purchased shades, you know that it has that big bottle of processing solution. It's a 2% hydrogen peroxide and it's a 7 volume. This gives you shine, tone. Since it's not a 10 volume, it doesn't deposit. It just gives you that kind of glaze over the hair without opening the cuticle. They also have a developer called Crystal Clear, which you can pair with Shades EQ. This is meant to dilute your hair color. So if you want to do a 9V, but you're afraid that your client's hair is a little too porous and it's gonna suck up that V, and you wanna leave it on to give it longevity without it going too violet, you can dilute it with Crystal Clear, and that's gonna help dilute your formula so that it doesn't take too strong. And it's also really helpful for leaving it on longer, because a little rule of thumb with Redken is you can leave it on a minute and it will last 1 wash. So for every minute it's a wash. So if you leave it on 5 minutes, 5 washes. And because it's a demi, that's how it works. I don't know if that is like Bible for Redken shades. It's just what I've noticed. So I like to push it and leave it on as long as possible. But if you're using a 9V by itself, if you leave it on 5 minutes, your client's gonna have purple hair. So the Crystal Clear really helps in diluting your formula. So you can leave it on, it lasts longer for your client, but it won't go too purple. They also have something new within the last year or two. It's called a gel developer. This thickens your formula. So you guys know that Redken Shades is a liquid, and if you are using crystal clear processing solution, those are liquids too. So it's a very liquidy formula, which is why it's great for toning. But if you're using it for a low light or a root color at the chair, sometimes it's not the greatest because it's really drippy. You can end up getting it all over your client, all over your chair. So the gel formula makes it a thicker consistency. So I use that when I use Redken Shades for low lights in a foil. I'll use the gel, and then at the bowl if I'm doing a root color, sometimes even at the chair with a root color too. So it just makes it a little thicker, but something I have found is that it does slow down the processing a little bit. So I feel like you have to leave it on a little bit longer when you're using the gel developer. Redken Shades is a 20-minute processing time, 40-minute for gray coverage. And I know what you're thinking right now. You just said it's a no demi, no lift color. How can it cover gray? And I agree with you to an extent. Redken Shades is not ideal for like over 50% gray coverage. It's more for gray blending. So the longer you leave it on, the more it will do. And there are certain formulas that are better for gray coverage, and I will get into that in a minute. Redken Shades has a 1-to-1 mixing ratio. Make sure when you are mixing, you are always measuring it on a scale or with a bottle that has the measurement on it. I have found that if you mix too much processing solution or too much color, it is going to be more jelly, and I don't like that because I feel like it does slow down the processing time and you don't get consistent results. So with Redken Shades, make sure you are mixing it accurately. Processing times vary, but dilute solution instead of processing for less time for a lighter result. Now what I mean by that is if you are wanting to have a lighter color, if you don't want your toner to go too dark, instead of rinsing it off too soon, dilute your formula so that way it takes a little bit longer to process and you can rinse it off sooner, but it's safer because you diluted it instead of just rinsing it off before it's ready. So for example, if you're doing a level 7, but you don't want it to go quite down to a dark level 7, dilute it with crystal clear and it will help it not go to a true level 7, but you can leave it on longer so they have longevity with their color, because if you rinse it out before it's done, it's not going to tone fully, it's not going to give it the same shine, and it's not going to look as good. Now, there are 3 different tricks I have learned for diluting. Number 1 is obviously crystal clear. That's a great tool. It's what Redken recommends when using shades and diluting, but it's a little bottle and I think it's like $23. So it's really expensive. If you're new to the game and you're not wanting to spend that because you already had to buy shades and the processing solution, I have 2 other options for you. Their level 9s are not as pigmented as any of the other levels in shades. You can actually use a level 9 to dilute your formula. So let's say that you need a level 7, but you only have a level 5. Mix it with a 9 and it will actually dilute it a little bit and give you more of a 7 result. So that's a little trick for diluting with the actual colors. Also, I have found that if you double processing solution, it slows it down. Kind of like how I talked about with measuring before. I said that it slows down the processing time, so you have to make sure that you measure accurately. But if you're wanting to slow down the processing time, you can actually double the processing. So if you're doing 1 ounce of color, do 2 ounces of processing solution, and that's gonna dilute it for you as well. Redken Shades lathers like shampoo. This is actually the number 1 reason I love it so much. In the bowl, it'll set up and you'll see that it has a really nice lather, and you can just massage it through your client's hair, open the hair, see what it's doing, kind of massage it back through, and it gives you a really accurate kind of read on what it's doing, because I feel like sometimes with cream color, it's hard to see what's going on, but with Redken, you can like massage it in, lather it in, see what it's doing, and then it's also a really good time to give your client a head massage because it's already lathering, and because it already lathers, sometimes you don't have to shampoo afterwards. I probably 70% of the time don't shampoo afterwards because the Shades does it for me, unless I want to purple shampoo after to reinforce that toner. Okay, so something that I have seen is I have a handful of clients that are allergic to Redken Shades, and I was always like, what the heck, it's not a permanent color, there's no developer that would like irritate their scalp, what's going on? But then I found out that allergies to wheat could cause sensitivity to Shades EQ. So if you have a client that is gluten intolerant, if they are allergic to wheat, they could sometimes break out in little hives on their head. If they just have a sensitivity to these things, that could also happen too. And just be careful with that because it could cause irritation of their scalp. It could cause itchiness. Some people are more extreme than others. My aunt is one of them. She literally cannot have Shades touch her head or she breaks out in hives, and it actually lasts weeks. I've also seen other people who just get a little bit itchy and it's fine after a wash or 2. So just be careful. Patch testing is always really smart because you never know if they could have a sensitivity to it. Redken Shades can be used on wet or dry hair. It is blended with silicones to help improve wet compatibility. So the reason that you can use it on wet and dry is because of the way that it is mixed in with silicones, and you can use it on wet and dry because of this, and it goes on really nicely on both wet and dry. I love shades like that because it's so versatile. I can do it at the bowl or I can do it at the chair, and either way I get great results. So there's a common misconception when it comes to silicone and hair color, hair product. Everyone says silicone is bad, bad, bad. And I agree for the most part, but there is a common misconception. These silicones are actually naturally derived from sand and processed in different variations. So if it is processed the right way and made from the right material, silicones can actually be a good thing for certain products. I don't know too much about that. I know that I learned that from a Redken educator, and they said that it's really good for this certain product because it helps have wet compatibility. I'm not saying that silicones are good in any other product or any other hair color, but for this certain product, it's a really good thing. So you might have noticed when purchasing Redken Shades EQ, let's use 9B for an example. You buy that, you will notice that there is a 0 in front of it. All of their levels have a 0 in front of it, so it will be 09B. The 0 symbolizes no lift in the hair color. So you'll see 0, which is no lift, the level, which is 9, V, which is the tone, and then the shade name, which is Platinum Ice for the 9V. That's really helpful because it gives you so many clues onto what that color is gonna do. The no lift, the shade level, the shade name, and the tone in it. So you can kind of guess, if you are familiar with hair color, what that certain tone will be. Another one would be 7NB. That's gonna be a level 7 natural beige. And if you know hair color really well, you'll be able to know what an NB symbolizes. But for someone who's new to it, that can be kind of tricky. So I would recommend getting the Redken Shades EQ Processing Solution Map. It breaks it down levels, tones, underlying pigments, the name of each shade, what it's gonna do, and that's a really helpful tool for beginners. Okay, let's talk Redken shades and gray blending. This is a question I get all the time because people get confused on whether it can be used for gray coverage, and my opinion, it is gray blending only. I don't think I would ever use it for someone who had gray coverage that I was trying to cover 100%. Anything over 50%, I would definitely use a permanent double pigment. But Redken Shades EQ can blend grays by using an NB in your formula. The natural beiges have more pigment in them, so that is going to cover gray better than anything else in their line. The percentage of grays is the percentage of NB you will want to use. So if your client is 40% gray, use an N, and then 40% of your formula you want to use the NB. Only darker shades will cover gray. Lighter levels have less pigment. So don't try to use a 9N, 9NB to cover gray. You're gonna wanna use a 4N, 4NB to cover gray, or a 6N, 6NB. That is the most helpful tip that I have found with Redken gray coverage. And something I've also noticed is clients with a lighter level naturally, you have to treat it like it's gray hair. Me, for example, I have a level 8 naturally, and my hair never takes shades, ever. I've done 6N, 6NA, 6GI, everything. I've added in a little NB, but since I've learned this little trick that the percentage of gray is the percentage you wanna do, my hair is basically 100% gray because it's a level 8. It is so light that it has not a lot of pigment. So I started doing more NB, so like 90% NB and then just a little bit of N, and it's covered way better. So I have a few clients that are lighter as well. I've tried that on them and it works. So I wouldn't say it covers 100% because our hair is so light that it's light gray hair, but it definitely covers it better than if I was just to do an N. So if you are using this for gray blending on a client, then I would definitely try it. Let's say you're doing a full highlight, you want to paint in between the foils to cover some of those grays, this is a great option. But if you have a level 5 client with 50% or more gray, this is not going to be what you want to use. What I love most about shades and why I use it on 90% of my clients is no commitment. I can use it for root taps, I can use it for low lights, toning, I can use it for all over colors if the client wants to change their hair, and it's gonna give me that no commitment. It'll last a few weeks, it'll give them really great shine, a really great tone, a really great color, but it's not gonna be a pain to pull out if they wanna change their hair. So root shades, for example, if I'm using this for a root shadow or a root smudge for a blonde that wants to try it, and then they hate it and they wanna go back blonde to the root, I don't have to break through permanent color. So I always use shades for this thing. I would say the only time I ever use permanent color is what I talked about before, if my client has really heavy gray coverage. If a client wants to go darker, if they're wanting to try to be brunette and it's normally a blonde, or if they want to be a redhead, this is great for that. You guys probably saw my video of me taking my blonde sister red, and I used all Redken shades for my formula. It was incredible. Redken actually reposted it, which was amazing, and it was a no commitment formula. It had faded out and we got her blonde again within 2 sessions. No permanent color to break through. So no commitment is the best thing about Redken shades. Filling the hair with Redken Shades of Q is a great way to use shades, but keep in mind that you never want to fill more than one level at a time. Let's pretend we have a client who's a level 9 and they want to go down to a level 4. Level 4 has a lot of red undertones, level 9 is a pale yellow. We got to get all of those missing tones. So you don't want to just tone with a 7, making that your filler, and then go to a 4. You have to grab all of those missing pigments. So you have to get the 8, the 7, the 6, the 5, all of those underlying pigments that you were missing in between a 9 and a 4, and you got to fill with those too. So I start out by filling with like an 8-7, then I go to a 6-5, then I go to the 4, because you have to get all the coppers, the golds, the reds, everything you're going to be missing before you get to that final destination of a 4. Redken is my most used color line for so many reasons. Filling, toning, lowlights, gloss, all over color. Like I talked before, it is so versatile and I love it so much. I would say Redken Shades of Q is something that every single stylist needs. If you are a stylist that uses Redken at your salon, or you have options in what you're able to use. I know some salons don't give you very many choices, but if you have the choice, definitely try Redken Shades if you haven't already. I have come up with a little starter kit if you are new to Redken Shades, or if you're a new stylist looking to get a few supplies under your belt. This is what I think you need as a starter kit, so I'm going to read it right here. You need 9N, 9NB, 9V, 9P, 9NA, 8N, 8GI, 8WG, 7N, 7P, 7T, 7V, 7GB, 7NA, 6N, 6T, 6NB, 6GN, 5N, 5NA, 5G, 4N, 4NB, 4NA, 3N. These are my go-to shades. I use all of these all the time. I know some of you might be confused and be like, why do I need so many ashy tones within level 7 or so many warm tones? And let's just use that level 7 as an example. 7N is a staple. That's always something you're gonna need to use. And then I have 7P, 7T, 7V, and 7NA on there. That is 4 cool toned toners, but they all do different things. 7P is a really pearly color. It is a mix of blue and violet, so it gives you a really nice tone. It helps counteract warmer tones without going too ashy. 7V is also really great. I tend to mix 7P and 7V a lot. I like to mix to get accurate tones because sometimes 7V is too strong and P makes it a little more pearly. 7T, on the other hand, is another cool shade, but it's very strong and it's really, really good if you're lifting dark hair and you're getting all of those orange tones. T is gonna help counteract that. 7NA is also a cool tone, but I like to use that at the root. If I'm counteracting any warmth at the root, I'll mix it with 7N and use the 7NA on the base. I also have in there tones like 6GN, that's a green neutral, and you might wonder why you need that, but when you are lifting red out of dark hair, or if you're trying to take a redhead blonde, G is gonna help to counteract that red because green counteracts red, and that's such a helpful tone to have. I use it all the time. When I first bought it, I didn't think I was gonna use it, but I do. They have an 8 and a 6GN, but I have found that 6 is better than the 8 because you're most likely gonna encounter red tones when lifting 6 rather than a level 8. I would say out of all of these, 9P, 9V, and then 7N, 7NA are my go-tos. I do a lot of blondes. 7 is a great root toner, and then 9 is a great end toner. Those are my probably most used, so I end up doubling or tripling those. So I'll usually get like 2 or 3 9Ps, 2 or 3 9Vs, but every other shade I just get 1. Starting off with that starter kit is going to be really helpful, and then by the time you know it, you're going to be just doing amazing things, and you're going to be able to expand your kit, and your whole cabinet will be full with Redken Shades of Q, and that's going to be an amazing day. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope you learned something new. If you guys are wanting a part 2 to this, let me know. I thought it would be kind of cool to use some of these techniques and tips and tricks on real life clients and take all of these and just put them into the real world, so I could do a Redken Shadesy video more in depth on different heads of hair. So if that's something that you were wanting to see, let me know. If you use Redken Shadesy Q, let me know how much you love it in the comments below. And if you have any tips or tricks that you have learned while using it, let me know as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day. Bentley, can you say thanks for watching this video? I was a good boy doing this video. Yes, I was. Were you a good boy too, Beckham? Yeah, you a good boy.